I'm Mackenzie Parker, 28 years old, and on what should have been the happiest day of my life, my parents were boarding a plane to Hawaii. The June weather was perfect, my dress was perfect, and Ryan was perfect, but the two empty seats in the front row left a hole nothing could fill. What I didn't know then was that the plain white envelope they left behind would completely transform my understanding of love, family, and forgiveness. If you're watching this from somewhere with parents who showed up for you, treasure that gift. Let me know where you're watching from, hit that subscribe button, and settle in because this unexpected gift changed absolutely everything. Growing up as the only child of Diane and Howard Parker meant learning independence early. My parents weren't the type to attend school plays or soccer games, they were building careers, always securing our future as they liked to remind me. My mom was a financial consultant who specialized in corporate restructuring, which meant lots of travel and late nights. My dad was a commercial real estate developer who seemed permanently attached to his phone, negotiating deals even during our rare family dinners. I can still remember sitting in the front row of my 5th grade piano recital, scanning the audience during my Chopin piece, hoping to see them slip in late. They never did. My teacher, Mrs. Henderson, would always give me an extra hug afterward, her eyes full of pity that I pretended not to notice. When I graduated high school as valedictorian, they made it, but had to leave immediately after the ceremony for a flight to Chicago. College graduation? Dad made it, Mom was in Singapore closing a deal. Don't get me wrong, we weren't poor in resources, just in time together. Our house in Seattle was beautiful, I never wanted for material things, and they paid for my education in full. But birthdays were often celebrated days late, and Christmas sometimes happened on December 27th when their schedules aligned. I learned not to expect their presence, only their presence. Then I met Ryan Matthews at a charity fundraiser 6 years ago. He was 30 then, I was 22 and fresh out of college. He worked in sustainable architecture, designing eco-friendly buildings with a passion that reminded me of my parents, except Ryan had balance. What first attracted me to him, beyond his warm hazel eyes and quiet confidence, was watching how he interacted with his parents who were also at the event. Gerald and Martha Matthews orbited around their son with genuine interest, asking questions about his recent projects, laughing easily, touching his shoulder affectionately. It was like witnessing creatures from another planet, parents who were fully present, emotionally available, and unabashedly proud. "Your parents seem nice," I had commented awkwardly after he introduced us. "They're the best," Ryan replied, with a simplicity that stunned me. No qualifiers, no eye rolls, no complicated relationship to explain. Just straightforward appreciation. Our relationship progressed steadily. Ryan was patient with my emotional walls, never pushing but always reassuring. When I'd canceled plans because my parents unexpectedly had time to see me, he understood without resentment. When I'd get quiet after another disappointing phone call with them, he'd just hold me. His family welcomed me immediately. Sunday dinners at the Matthews house became a sanctuary, noisy, warm gatherings where people interrupted each other, shared food freely, and actually talked about their feelings. Martha would send me home with leftovers and random little gifts just because. Gerald taught me to change my oil and called just to check in. It was disorienting at first, almost uncomfortable in its unfamiliarity. When Ryan proposed after 3 years together on a hike to the waterfall where we'd had our 3rd date, I said yes through happy tears. That night, we celebrated with his family, who had champagne waiting when we returned. They had known about the proposal, had been part of the planning. There were hugs, toasts, and tears. Calling my parents was different. They were both at a conference in Toronto. "Mom, I'm engaged," I had announced, trying to infuse my voice with enough excitement for all of us. "That's wonderful, honey. Ryan's a good man. Send me some dates for the wedding so I can check my calendar." "Oh, they're calling us back in. I'll call you this weekend to hear all about it." She didn't call that weekend. Or the next. My best friend Allison Mitchell had been my emotional support since college, and she stepped up as maid of honor with fierce dedication. "We're going to make this the best damn wedding ever," she declared. "Whether your parents show up or not, you're going to be surrounded by people who love you." The planning process was a mixture of joy and heartache. Martha Matthews enthusiastically joined every dress shopping appointment, helped address invitations, and researched florists. My mother attended one dress fitting, arriving late and spending most of the time on her phone. "I'm sorry, sweetie, it's this big client in Tokyo." "You look beautiful in all of them," she said, not really looking at any of the three finalists. 2 months before the wedding, I met my parents for dinner, determined to confirm their attendance. "You both have June 12th blocked off, right? The ceremony starts at 3 p.m. My father glanced at my mother before answering. "We're trying to clear the schedule, Mac. There's potentially a big opportunity coming up around then." "A bigger opportunity than your only daughter's wedding?" The words came out sharper than I intended. "That's not fair," my mother responded. "We've always done what's best for this family." "No, you've done what's best for your careers. There's a difference." I took a deep breath. "Please, just this once. Be there." They promised to do their best. I pretended to believe them. As the wedding approached, my anxiety grew. Ryan held me through tear-filled nights, assuring me that our day would be perfect regardless. His parents stepped in to handle last-minute details, and Allison became a fierce gatekeeper, managing my stress and expectations. "They'll be there," Allison reassured me, though the doubt in her eyes matched mine. "And if they're not, it's truly their loss." I clung to hope with white knuckles. After all, it was my wedding day. Surely that would be enough to finally make them show up for me. Surely. The morning of my wedding day dawned picture perfect. Seattle graced us with rare June sunshine, streaming through the windows of the bridal suite at Lakeside Gardens. My bridesmaids, Allison, Jasmine, and Katie, were already popping champagne at 10 a.m., their matching silk robes catching the light as they arranged breakfast pastries and fruit. "The photographer will be here in 30 minutes, Allison announced, checking her meticulously organized schedule. "Hair and makeup team is setting up in the next room." And I've already checked the ceremony site. The flowers look incredible. I felt a strange calm, despite the butterflies. This was happening. I was marrying Ryan today, surrounded by people who loved us. My phone chimed with a text from him. "Can't wait to see you. I love you more than architecture, and that's saying something." I smiled, typing back a quick response when another call came through. My mother's face lit up my screen, sending an immediate surge of anxiety through my chest. "Mom? Are you on your way?" I answered, trying to keep my voice light. There was a pause. Background noise filtered through airport announcements. "Mackenzie, sweetheart." Her voice had that particular tone I'd come to recognize over the years, the one that preceded disappointment. "Something's come up." The room seemed to tilt slightly. Allison caught my eye, her smile fading as she saw my expression. "What do you mean, something's come up?" "It's my wedding day." My voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. "I know, honey, and we're so sorry. But we've been working on this deal for months, and the investors are only in Hawaii for the weekend. If we don't close now, we lose everything we've put into it." "Hawaii," I repeated numbly. "You're going to Hawaii right now? Instead of my wedding? Your father's already boarding." "I'm about to follow. We tried to reschedule, but no, you didn't." The calm I'd felt earlier crystallized into something harder. "If you had tried, you would be here. This is my wedding day." "My wedding day, Mom." "Mackenzie, please try to understand. This deal means we can finally start stepping back. It means security, and it means exactly what it's always meant. That I come second. That I've always come second." Tears burned in my eyes, but I fought them back. "Go to Hawaii. Close your deal. But don't expect me to understand this time." I hung up before she could respond. The bridesmaids had gone quiet, pretending to busy themselves with makeup arrangements, giving me the illusion of privacy. "They're not coming," I said flatly. "They're on their way to Hawaii for a business deal." Allison was beside me in an instant. "Those absolute," she cut herself off, taking a deep breath. "I'm so sorry, Mac." "They're going to Hawaii?" Jasmine echoed incredulously. "Today of all days?" Katie already had tears in her eyes. "What can we do? Should we call Ryan?" "No," I said firmly, surprising myself with the steadiness in my voice. "No, I'll tell him myself. But not right now. Right now, I need to get ready to marry the love of my life. And I refuse to let them ruin that." Allison squeezed my hand. "That's my girl." The next few hours passed in a blur of hairspray, makeup brushes, and reassuring embraces. Each time I felt myself starting to crumble, I focused on Ryan. Steady, loving Ryan who had never once disappointed me. I would not let my parents' absence overshadow our day. But when it came time to put on my dress, an elegant A-line with delicate lace detailing that had made even my perpetually distracted mother pause in appreciation, the reality hit me hard. There would be no father to walk me down the aisle. No mother to help with my veil. "I'll call Gerald," Allison offered gently. "Ryan's dad would be honored to walk with you." I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. When Ryan found out, insisted on coming to see me, tradition be damned, his face darkened with an anger I rarely saw in him. "I'm calling them," he said, reaching for his phone. "Don't," I caught his hand. "Please." "It won't change anything." He pulled me into his arms, careful not to wrinkle my dress. "I'm so sorry, Mac. You deserve better than this." "I have better," I whispered against his chest. "I have you." The ceremony proceeded beautifully despite the hollow ache in my chest. Gerald Matthews proudly walked me down the aisle, whispering, "Your family now, sweetheart." Completely and forever, before placing my hand in his son's. Martha dabbed at tears in the front row, where my parents should have been. Ryan's vows made me laugh and cry in equal measure. "I promise to always show up," he said at one point, the words carrying extra weight now. "In the good moments and the hard ones. Every day, every year, I choose you." At the reception, their absence was both glaring and somehow familiar. The table reserved for immediate family had empty chairs that seemed to grow more conspicuous as the evening progressed. I caught concerned glances, fielded gentle inquiries about my parents' whereabouts with practiced smiles and vague references to unavoidable work commitments. It was during the dinner service that Gerald approached me, an envelope in hand. This was delivered earlier today. The coordinator almost forgot about it with everything else happening. I recognized my mother's handwriting immediately, my name in her precise script across the front of a simple white envelope. "Thank you," I said, slipping it into the hidden pocket Martha had insisted on adding to my dress. "I'll look at it later." Gerald nodded understandingly. "Whenever you're ready." The weight of that envelope stayed with me through the first dance, the cake cutting, the bouquet toss. I had no intention of opening it tonight. Whatever explanation or justification it contained could wait. This night was about Ryan and me, not about my parents' absence. Later, as we prepared to leave for our hotel, Allison helped me change into my going-away outfit. "What are you going to do about that?" she asked, nodding toward the envelope I'd set on the vanity. I picked it up, turning it over in my hands. "Nothing. Not tonight. Maybe not for a while." "Fair enough," she agreed, hugging me tightly. "I'm so proud of you, Mac. Today was beautiful." It was, I agreed, realizing with mild surprise that I meant it. Despite everything, the day had been filled with love, real, present, demonstrated love from Ryan, his family, our friends. Maybe that was enough. I tucked the envelope into my overnight bag, where it would remain untouched until long after our honeymoon. I had no way of knowing then that its contents would completely transform my understanding of my parents, my childhood, and ultimately myself. Cancun greeted us with humid, salty air and endless azure waters that seemed determined to wash away the lingering disappointment of my parents' absence. Our beachfront suite at the Royal Palmera Resort was a postcard fantasy: private plunge pool, canopy bed draped in gauzy white fabric, and floor-to-ceiling windows that framed the Caribbean like a living painting. "Should I carry you over the threshold?" Ryan asked as we entered, his smile both playful and tender. "Absolutely not," I laughed. "I've seen you throw out your back trying to move your drafting table." He gasped in mock offense. "That thing is solid oak. And now my wife is solid sass." Wife. The word still felt new, precious. I wrapped my arms around his neck. "Your wife thinks we should immediately test the structural integrity of that bed." Ryan was a master of distraction during those first few days. He scheduled snorkeling adventures, couples massages, and sunset cruises, filling our hours with experiences that demanded presence, that left little room for dwelling on hurt feelings. But the thoughts crept in during quiet moments, while applying sunscreen, during the lull between dinner courses, in the seconds before sleep claimed me. I'd find myself checking my phone, both dreading and hoping for some message from my parents. For days into our 2-week honeymoon, the social media notification appeared. Diane Parker had posted photos. With trembling fingers, I opened the app to see my mother beaming on a Hawaiian beach, cocktail in hand, my father's arm around her shoulders. Closing deals and opening new chapters. Hashtag business and pleasure, hashtag Hawaiian paradise. The timestamp indicated they'd posted it during our wedding reception. I showed Ryan wordlessly, my throat too tight for speech. "Jesus," he muttered, taking the phone. I don't even have words." "They look happy," I managed to say, the observation burning like acid. "Happier than I've seen them look in years." Ryan set the phone aside, pulling me against his chest. "I'm so sorry, Mac. I should be used to this by now." I burrowed into his embrace. "Why does it still hurt so much?" "Because you're human. Because they're your parents. Because it's normal to want the people who created you to show up for the big moments." I pulled back slightly, studying his face. "Your parents are so different. Did you ever wonder how you got so lucky?" A shadow crossed his features. "They weren't always like this. Before my sister died, my dad was distant, work-obsessed. It took losing Emily to make them reprioritize." This was a side of the Matthews family story I'd heard only in pieces. Emily had died of leukemia when Ryan was 16, years before I met him. "They had to lose a child to figure out what mattered," Ryan continued quietly. "Maybe some people need that kind of wake-up call." "Well, my parents didn't get the memo when I nearly died from appendicitis in college," I pointed out bitterly. "Mom was in Tokyo. She sent flowers." That night, I tried calling them a moment of weakness after too many tropical cocktails. Straight to voicemail, as expected. I didn't leave a message. The next morning, they posted another Hawaii photo, this time tagged at some exclusive resort on the North Shore. "What do you think is in the envelope?" Ryan asked over breakfast on our balcony, broaching the subject carefully. I poked at my fruit plate. "Probably an explanation about how this business deal is going to change everything, secure our future, blah blah blah. The usual justifications." "Don't you want to know for sure?" I set down my fork. "Not while we're here. I don't want their excuses to contaminate our honeymoon." Ryan respected that, but as the days passed, I could sense his curiosity growing. He'd never pressure me, but his eyes occasionally drifted to my suitcase, where the envelope remained buried beneath sundresses and swimsuits. By the beginning of our second week, the pristine beaches had lost some of their luster. The hurt had crystallized into something harder, more defined: anger, yes, but also a growing need for resolution. I found myself checking my parents' social media multiple times daily, torturing myself with glimpses of their Hawaiian adventure. "I think we should go home early," I announced one evening as we watched the sunset from our balcony. Ryan looked surprised. "Are you sure? We still have 5 days left. I can't fully be here anymore." I gestured to the paradise surrounding us. My mind is back home, wondering what's in that envelope, wondering what happens next with my parents. I'm stuck. He took my hand, his thumb tracing gentle circles on my palm. Then let's go home. Face it together. 2 days later, we were on a flight back to Seattle, the envelope burning a hole in my carry-on bag. Every mile closer to home ratcheted up my anxiety. What if it contained nothing important? What if it was just another empty apology? Or worse, what if it wasn't an apology at all, but a defense of their indefensible choice? Ryan dozed beside me as the plane began its descent, his head resting against my shoulder. I envied his peace, his certainty in us, and our future. My own mind raced with scenarios, each more unsettling than the last. By the time we landed, a strange calm had settled over me, the eerie stillness that comes before a storm. Whatever awaited us in that envelope, I was finally ready to confront it. Let's go home, I said to Ryan as we collected our luggage and get this over with. Our house felt both familiar and strangely new as we stepped inside, as though our brief absence and new marital status had somehow altered its fundamental nature. Ryan insisted on carrying our luggage, and despite my protests, ever the gentleman. Home sweet home, Mrs. Matthews, he said, setting down the bags in our entryway. The name still gave me a little thrill, a reminder that despite everything, something beautiful had happened. I had gained a partner, a teammate who chose me every day. My eyes immediately landed on the coffee table, where the envelope sat in pristine solitude, exactly where I'd left it before we departed for the ceremony on our wedding day. It seemed both innocent and ominous in the afternoon light filtering through our living room windows. I put it there, Ryan admitted. This morning, when I came to check on the house before picking you up at the airport. Thought we should face it head-on. I approached slowly, as if the envelope might suddenly sprout teeth. What if it's just another disappointment? What if it's a check to make up for their absence? Then we'll deal with that together, Ryan said, standing beside me. But we won't know until we open it. With trembling fingers, I broke the seal and peered inside. Not a check, but something unexpected, a key, a USB drive, and a folded piece of paper covered in my mother's precise handwriting. What is it? Ryan asked. I unfolded the note, my heart hammering against my ribs. Asterisk, dearest Mackenzie. Asterisk, I read aloud. Asterisk, by the time you read this, you'll be married, and we'll be in Hawaii. We know you're hurt and angry. You have every right to be. What we've done seems unforgivable, and perhaps it is. But there's more to this story than you know. Asterisk, asterisk, we won't be reachable for approximately 6 months. The Hawaii trip is just the beginning of a journey we've been planning for years. Everything we've worked for. Every missed recital, every postponed birthday, every sacrificed weekend has been building to this moment. Asterisk, I paused, glancing at Ryan with confusion before continuing. Asterisk, the USB drive contains a video that will explain everything. The key opens the front door to 1837 Pacific Coast Highway in Malibu. Go there when you're ready. What you find might not excuse our absence on your wedding day, but we hope it might help you understand. Asterisk, asterisk, we love you more than you can possibly know. We've made mistakes, many of them, but everything we've ever done has been out of love for you. Even this, asterisk, asterisk, Mom and Dad, asterisk, Ryan, and I stared at each other in stunned silence. Malibu, he finally said. They bought something in Malibu? I felt oddly detached, like I was floating somewhere above the scene. Apparently. And they're going off-grid for 6 months? That doesn't sound like them at all. My parents lived and died by their phones. The idea of them being unreachable for 6 months was almost more shocking than them missing my wedding. Let's check the USB, Ryan suggested, already retrieving his laptop from his office. We sat side by side on the couch, the drive plugged in, a video file the only content. With a deep breath, I clicked play. My parents appeared on screen, sitting together on what looked like a hotel balcony, ocean visible behind them. They looked different somehow. My father's usual tense expression softened, my mother without her perpetual frown of concentration. Mackenzie, my father began, if you're watching this, it's after your wedding day. We know our absence is unforgivable. We've missed too many important moments in your life, and this is the most important of all. My mother picked up. The deal we're closing in Hawaii isn't just any deal. It's the culmination of a project we've been working on since you were in high school. A second business, separate from our regular careers, built entirely with you in mind. 20 years ago, my father continued, we realized we were failing you as parents. We were so focused on climbing our respective ladders that we were missing your childhood. But rather than changing course, which, looking back, would have been the right choice, we doubled down on providing security. Financial security. My mother's eyes glistened. We started investing in emerging tech companies, using our expertise and connections to identify opportunities others missed. What began as a side project grew into something substantial. By the time you were in college, we were managing a significant portfolio specifically earmarked for your future. The Hawaii deal, my father explained, is the sale of that portfolio to a major investment group. The timing couldn't be changed. They're only in Hawaii this weekend. If we miss this meeting, everything we've built for the past 15 years collapses. I paused the video, my hands shaking. They built a secret business? For me. Ryan squeezed my shoulder. Keep watching. I pressed play again. The property in Malibu is yours, my mother said. Completely paid for, in your name. We've also taken the liberty of paying off your mortgage in Seattle. The papers are at the Malibu house. Additionally, my father added, we've established education funds for your future children. 3 of them, to be precise. He gave a small smile. We're optimistic about grandchildren. My mother leaned forward slightly. Mackenzie, we know material things don't make up for our absence. Nothing can give you back the moments we missed. But we're trying, in our imperfect way, to make things right. After this deal closes, we're both retiring. Completely. The next chapter of our lives is about repairing our relationship with you, if you'll let us. We'll be traveling for the next 6 months, my father continued. Places with spotty communication. Hawaii, then New Zealand, Australia, Southeast Asia. It's partly business, wrapping up loose ends. But mostly, it's us learning how to live differently. Learning how to be present. We love you, sweetheart, my mother concluded, tears now flowing freely. We're so proud of the woman you've become. Despite our failures, not because of them. We hope that someday you can forgive us. And we can't wait to properly meet Ryan as our son-in-law when we return. The video ended, leaving Ryan and me in stunned silence. They paid off our mortgage? Ryan finally said, his voice faint with disbelief. Apparently, I replied, equally shocked. And bought a house in Malibu. And set up education funds for our theoretical children. That's a lot to process. I stood suddenly, pacing the living room. This doesn't make sense. They've never been impulsive. They've never been generous like this. And retiring? My mother once told me she'd die at her desk because retirement was for people without purpose. Ryan watched me carefully. People can change, Mac. Not my parents, I insisted. Not like this. But even as I said it, doubt crept in. The couple in that video had seemed different, softer somehow, more vulnerable than I'd ever seen them. I need to see this Malibu house, I declared. I need to know if this is real. Ryan nodded. I'll book us flights for tomorrow. That night, I barely slept, my mind racing with questions. Was this elaborate gift meant to buy my forgiveness? Or was it possible that my parents had actually been trying, in their deeply flawed way, to show their love all along? By morning, I still had no answers. Only a key burning a hole in my pocket and a destination that might finally help me understand the people who had brought me into this world, then spent decades orbiting at a careful distance. The Malibu property took my breath away the moment we turned onto the private drive. Perched on a bluff overlooking the Pacific, the modern glass and stone structure seemed to emerge organically from the landscape, its clean lines complementing rather than competing with the spectacular natural setting. "Holy shit," Ryan whispered as we pulled up to the house. Mac, this is a multi-million-dollar property." My stomach nodded as I clutched the key. This doesn't feel real. The front door swung open silently, revealing an open-concept living space with 20-foot ceilings and floor-to-ceiling windows framing the ocean view. The interior was elegantly furnished in neutral tones, the decor minimal but high quality. Fresh flowers sat on the dining table. Someone had been expecting us. "There's a note," Ryan said, pointing to an envelope propped against the flower vase. Inside was a brief message from a property management company, welcoming us to our new home and explaining that the house would be maintained weekly unless we instructed otherwise. A binder contained all the relevant information, security codes, maintenance schedules, contact numbers. "They've thought of everything," Ryan murmured, flipping through the binder. I wandered through the house in a daze, taking in the gourmet kitchen, the primary suite with its private terrace, the 3 additional bedrooms, each with its own bathroom. The lower level housed a home gym, wine cellar, and media room. Every space was immaculate, tasteful, and completely impersonal until I reached what appeared to be a home office. Unlike the rest of the house, this room felt different. Warm. Lived in somehow. The bookshelves held familiar titles. My favorite childhood stories, novels I'd mentioned loving in college, even my dog-eared copy of The Architecture of Happiness that I'd loaned my mother years ago and assumed she'd never read. "Ryan," I called, my voice unsteady. "Come look at this." He appeared in the doorway, his expression shifting as he took in the room. "This doesn't match the rest of the house." "No," I agreed. "This room was designed for me." I ran my fingers along the desk. Solid walnut, obviously expensive, but with the kind of character that spoke of craftsmanship rather than price tag. It reminded me of the antique desk in my grandfather's study, where I'd spent countless hours drawing and reading as a child during our rare family visits. The wall behind the desk held framed photographs, dozens of them, chronicling my life from infancy to recent years. Me as a toothless baby, grinning in my mother's arms. First day of kindergarten, clutching a lunchbox. Piano recitals, soccer games, graduation. Many were events my parents had missed, but somehow they had photographs. They had someone taking pictures, I realized aloud. When they couldn't be there, they sent photographers. Ryan stepped closer, studying the photo wall. I don't know whether that's touching or disturbing." "Both," I whispered. "Definitely both." A built-in cabinet revealed more surprises, carefully preserved artifacts from my life. Art projects from elementary school. The program from my first piano recital, with my name highlighted. Report cards. The essay that won a national contest in high school. Even my college application essays, printed and bound in a leather portfolio. "They kept everything," I said, my voice breaking. "Everything." As we continued exploring, the house revealed more personal touches hidden among the luxurious appointments. A kitchen drawer stocked with my favorite teas. A bookshelf in the master bedroom filled with travel guides for all the places I'd ever mentioned wanting to visit. In one of the guest rooms, a cedar chest contained neatly folded quilts that I recognized from my grandmother's house, family heirlooms I'd thought were lost when my grandparents' estate was sold. "I don't understand," I said, sinking onto the edge of the bed. "If they cared enough to do all this, why couldn't they care enough to just show up?" Ryan sat beside me, his hand warm on my back. "I don't know, Mac. But this house, it feels like they've been preparing it for years." While simultaneously failing to be present for a single important moment in my life, I added bitterly. "They built this shrine to my existence while missing my actual existence." We spent the afternoon exploring the property. The infinity pool overlooking the ocean, the meticulously landscaped gardens, the private path leading down to a secluded beach. Everything was perfect, pristine, and completely overwhelming. By evening, my emotions had evolved from shock to a simmering anger. We ordered takeout from a local restaurant, eating on the massive terrace as the sun set over the Pacific. "You're quiet," Ryan observed, pushing his half-eaten pasta around his plate. "I'm thinking about how many ballet recitals, science fairs, and birthday parties it takes to equal a beach house in Malibu." I set down my fork with more force than necessary. "What's the exchange rate on missed moments to square footage?" Ryan sighed. "Mac, no, seriously. How many bedrooms do I get for the time my appendix burst and Mom sent her assistant to the hospital because she was in Singapore? Does an infinity pool make up for Dad missing my college graduation?" "I don't think that's what they were trying to do," Ryan said carefully. "Then what were they trying to do?" I demanded, tears threatening. "Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like they thought they could buy my forgiveness. That's somehow all of this." I gestured at our surroundings, makes up for a lifetime of emotional neglect. "I think," Ryan said slowly, "they were trying to love you the only way they knew how. By buying me things instead of giving me time?" "Yes." "Because maybe for them, this was the bigger sacrifice." Ryan leaned forward. "Think about it. They're workaholics who define themselves by their careers. They don't know how to show love through presence because they never learned that language. But they do understand sacrifice, hard work, providing." "That's very generous of you," I said, my voice tight. "Especially considering they couldn't be bothered to show up to our wedding." Ryan winced. "I'm not defending them, Mac. I'm just trying to understand them." Before I could respond, my phone rang, an unknown international number. With trembling fingers, I answered and put it on speaker. "Mackenzie?" My mother's voice, tinny and distant. "Can you hear me?" "The connection isn't great." "I hear you," I replied coldly. "We've been trying to reach you for days." "Did you get our gift? Did you go to the house?" "Yes, we're here now." I fought to keep my voice steady. "It's quite a consolation prize." A beat of silence. "That's not what it was meant to be." "Really?" "Because it feels an awful lot like you're trying to buy your way out of being terrible parents." "Mackenzie, please try to understand." "Understand what, Mom?" "That you and Dad built a secret business for 15 years, but couldn't spare 6 hours for my wedding? That you can orchestrate this elaborate surprise, but couldn't show up for the most important day of my life. The timing of the deal was more important than your only daughter." I got it. Message received, loud and clear. My voice broke. "You know what the worst part is? This house is beautiful. It's thoughtful. It shows that somewhere deep down, you were paying attention. You knew what I liked, what mattered to me. Which just proves that you could have been present all along, you just chose not to be." "That's not fair," my father's voice joined in, apparently on the same call. "We've worked our entire lives to provide for you, to give you opportunities. I never wanted opportunities." I shouted, tears flowing freely now. "I wanted parents. I wanted you to come to my soccer games and piano recitals. I wanted birthday parties where you weren't checking your phones the whole time. I wanted you to choose me just once over work." Was that really so much to ask? Silence hung heavy over the line. "We thought we were doing the right thing," my mother finally said, her voice small. "Everything we did was to give you security, stability." "No," I cut her off. "Everything you did was to avoid the messy, uncomfortable work of actually being parents. You found a way to outsource emotional connection to material provision because it was easier for you." "That's not true," my father protested, but there was a new uncertainty in his voice. "Isn't it? Tell me, Dad, what's my favorite color? What was my first pet's name? Who was my first crush? What did I want to be when I grew up when I was 7 years old?" Silence. "That's what I thought." I wiped angrily at my tears. "You built this beautiful house filled with my memories, but you missed actually making those memories with me. And all the beachfront property in the world can't make up for that." I ended the call before they could respond, my body shaking with sobs. Ryan pulled me into his arms, holding me as years of repressed hurt poured out. Later that night, as we lay in the obscenely comfortable king-sized bed in the master suite, Ryan broached the subject gently. "What do you want to do now?" I stared at the ceiling, emotionally drained. "About the house, you mean?" "About everything. The house, your parents, all of it." I turned to face him. "I honestly don't know. Part of me wants to sell this place out of spite. Another part recognizes that regardless of their intentions, this is an incredible gift that could secure our future, our children's future." Ryan nodded thoughtfully. "You don't have to decide tonight." "No, but I do need to decide how to move forward with my parents. 6 months of no contact might actually be a blessing right now. I need time to process all of this. And the mortgage being paid off? The college funds." I sighed deeply. That's the complicated part, isn't it? I want to be furious with them, I am furious with them, but they've also done something extraordinarily generous. It's like they're emotionally tone-deaf, but financially fluent. Ryan pulled me closer. "Whatever you decide, I'm with you. If you want to sell this place and donate the money to orphan puppies, we'll do it. If you want to move in and become beach people, I'm game. If you want to cut ties with your parents completely, I'll support you." "What would you do?" I asked, genuinely curious. He was quiet for a long moment. "I'd probably take some time to cool off, then try to understand their perspective better. Not to excuse their behavior, but to make peace with it. They're deeply flawed people who clearly love you in their own broken way." "When did you get so wise?" I murmured against his chest. "Probably around the time I convinced the most amazing woman in the world to marry me." I fell asleep in his arms, my dreams troubled by conflicting images, my parents building this house piece by piece, selecting every detail with care, while simultaneously checking their watches during my life's most precious moments. The next morning, I decided to return to Seattle earlier than planned. The house, beautiful as it was, felt suffocating, too loaded with emotional complexity to enjoy. I needed the familiar comfort of our own home, needed to return to work, needed normal routines to process the seismic shift in my understanding of my family. "We can come back when you're ready," Ryan assured me as we locked up. "It's not going anywhere." As we drove away, I took one last look at the house, my house, perched on its bluff above the Pacific. A gift that represented both profound love and profound failure. A beautiful, painful paradox. Just like family itself. 3 months passed in a blur of normalcy that felt both comforting and jarring after the emotional roller coaster of our wedding and its aftermath. I threw myself into work, taking on additional projects at the environmental nonprofit where I managed donor relations. Ryan dove into a sustainable housing development that kept him working late many nights. We settled into married life easily enough. Our 5 years together before marriage had already established comfortable routines and rhythms. But beneath the surface calm, tension simmered. The Malibu house remained unvisited, its key hanging on our kitchen hook like a silent accusation. The mortgage company had indeed confirmed that our home was fully paid off, the paperwork impeccable. Our financial advisor verified the existence of 3 substantial college funds, already growing interest. My parents remained true to their word about being unreachable. Occasional social media posts showed them in New Zealand, then Australia, then Thailand, always smiling, always looking more relaxed than I'd ever seen them in real life. I'd stopped trying to call after that first disastrous conversation. "You're punishing him, you know," Allison observed one evening over wine at her apartment. "Ryan, I mean." I blinked in surprise. "What are you talking about?" "Every time he brings up your parents or the Malibu house, you shut down." He told me he's sleeping in the guest room half the time. Heat rushed to my face. "He shouldn't be discussing our marriage with you. He's worried about you, Mac." "We both are." Allison set down her glass. "You're stuck. Not moving forward, not processing backward. Just suspended in anger." "I have every right to be angry," I defended. "Absolutely. But you don't have the right to punish Ryan for trying to help you work through it. Her words stung because they contained truth. I had been pushing Ryan away whenever he attempted to discuss my parents or their gift. It was easier to pretend none of it had happened, to live in a strange limbo where I acknowledged the financial benefits without confronting the emotional implications. That night, I found Ryan in his home office, hunched over blueprints. "Can we talk?" I asked from the doorway. He looked up, his eyes cautious but hopeful. "Always." We moved to the living room, settling on opposite ends of the couch. The physical distance between us a painful metaphor. "I'm sorry," I began. "I've been shutting you out." "You've been processing," he offered generously. "It's a lot to take in." "No, I haven't been processing. That's the problem." I drew a deep breath. "I've been avoiding. And it's not fair to you." Ryan's expression softened. "What do you need, Mac? How can I help?" "I think I need to look at that USB drive again. There might be more on it that we missed." The next evening, we reopened the digital files together. Beyond the video message, we discovered a folder of documents, financial statements, property deeds, insurance policies. But there was also another folder simply labeled Mackenzie. Inside were hundreds of digital photographs spanning my entire life, organized chronologically. School plays where I'd looked for my parents in the audience and found only empty seats. Soccer tournaments where other parents had cheered while I performed for absent eyes. College events, professional milestones, all captured by someone, preserved meticulously. "They hired photographers," I whispered, echoing my realization from the Malibu house. "For everything they missed." "Look at these," Ryan said, opening another subfolder labeled Letters. Dozens of Word documents appeared, each titled with a date. I clicked on one at random from my 16th birthday. "Dear Mackenzie, today you turned 16. You wore a blue dress to school, the one with small white flowers that you bought with Allison last weekend. You aced your biology test and stayed after school for debate club. The team surprised you with cupcakes. You seemed happy, but you checked your phone 17 times during the celebration. I know you were looking for a message from us. Dad is in Beijing this week. I'm in Frankfurt. We called during our respective midnights, but you were asleep for his call and in school during mine. The gifts we ordered arrived on time at least, the leather journal you'd mentioned wanting and the charm bracelet. Your Aunt Susan delivered them and said you were gracious, but disappointed. I wish we were there. I wish I could explain that we're building something for you, something that will make sense someday. But 16-year-olds don't need someday promises. They need present parents. I've asked Teresa from my office to take photos today. She'll be discreet. I want to remember your 16-year-old face, even if you don't know I'm watching. Someday, I hope we can bridge this gap between us. Until then, I'll keep working, keep building, keep loving you from too far away. Mom. Tears streamed down my face as I opened letter after letter, dozens of them, spanning years. Letters never sent, never shared, documenting a parallel awareness of my life that I never knew existed. They knew when they were failing me. They saw the damage they were causing. But instead of changing course, they doubled down on their original plan, financial security above all else. There's something else, Ryan said softly, pointing to a spreadsheet labeled Mackenzie's Business. The document detailed the growth of their secret investment portfolio, started when I was 13. Initial investments in Apple, Amazon, and several tech startups I'd never heard of. Reinvestments, dividends, strategic sales. A second tab showed properties acquired and sold over years, each transaction building on the last. A third tab contained retirement projections not for them, but for me. They were never saving for themselves, I realized, staring at the numbers. This whole time, everything was for me. In their own misguided way, they were trying to give you what they thought you needed most, Ryan observed. But they were wrong about what I needed. My voice cracked. So tragically wrong. The next day, I made an appointment with Dr. Laura Bennett, a therapist Allison had been gently suggesting for weeks. In her warm office overlooking Lake Union, I poured out the whole complicated story. "It sounds like your parents confused provision with presence," she observed during our second session. "Perhaps because that's how they were raised themselves." "I never thought about that," I admitted. My grandparents were even more distant than my parents. My grandfather was a self-made businessman who grew up during the Depression. Security meant everything to him. "We parent how we were parented, unless we consciously choose differently," Dr. Bennett said. "Your parents gave you what they thought was most valuable: financial security, education, opportunities. The fact that you needed emotional presence instead was perhaps incomprehensible to them, outside their frame of reference." Over the following weeks, through more sessions with Dr. Bennett and lengthy conversations with Ryan, I began to view my parents through a different lens. Not excusing their failures, but understanding the context that shaped them. I started texting my mother brief messages at first, acknowledging the beautiful sunrise over Elliott Bay or sharing a photo of a new plant in our garden. She responded with similar snippets from wherever they were traveling. A temple in Cambodia, floating markets in Thailand. No deep conversations, no rehashing of hurts, just small bridges across the chasm between us. "I'm thinking of going to Hawaii," I told Ryan one evening in late October, 6 months after our wedding. He looked up from his book, surprised. "To see your parents?" "Yes. They're ending their trip there, coming full circle before returning to Seattle in November. I think I'm ready to talk to them face to face." "Are you sure?" I nodded slowly. "Not to forgive and forget. That's not possible or even desirable. But to understand, to establish new boundaries, to see if there's a way forward that acknowledges both the hurt and the love." Ryan set his book aside. "Do you want me to come with you?" "Actually, yes. You're part of this family now too, for better or worse." He smiled, the first genuine smile I'd seen in weeks when discussing my parents. "For better or worse," he echoed, taking my hand. That's what we signed up for. 2 weeks later, we landed in Honolulu. My parents had sent a car to bring us to their rental home on the North Shore, the same one featured in their social media posts from our wedding day, I realized with a pang. As we approached the house, I spotted them waiting on the front lanai, my father's hair grayer than I remembered, my mother thinner, both of them tanned from months in the sun. They stood awkwardly, clearly unsure of the protocol for this reunion. I stepped out of the car, my heart hammering against my ribs. 6 months of processing, of therapy, of gradual text exchanges had led to this moment. "Hi," I said simply. "Mackenzie," my mother breathed, taking a half step forward, then stopping herself. I closed the distance between us and, after a moment's hesitation, embraced her. She felt fragile in my arms, her body tense with surprise before softening into the hug. "We didn't think you'd come," my father said, his voice rough with emotion. "I almost didn't," I admitted as Ryan joined us, shaking my father's hand. The next few hours were awkward but necessary, small talk over dinner on the lanai, catching up on surface-level details while carefully avoiding the deeper issues that needed addressing. By unspoken agreement, we were giving ourselves time to acclimate to each other's presence before diving into the hard conversations. The following morning, I found my mother alone on the beach, watching the sunrise. I sat beside her on the sand, both of us quiet for a long moment. "I'm sorry we missed your wedding," she finally said, her eyes fixed on the horizon. "It's our greatest regret." "Greater than missing most of my childhood?" The words came out sharper than intended. She flinched but nodded. "Yes, because by then, we should have known better." I drew patterns in the sand with my finger. "The Malibu house is beautiful. We spent years planning it. Every detail chosen with you in mind. I wish you had spent those years being present instead." She turned to face me fully, tears in her eyes. "So do I. But I don't know if we knew how." That simple admission, The acknowledgement of their fundamental limitation opened the door to the most honest conversation I'd ever had with my mother. She spoke of her own childhood with emotionally distant parents, of the insecurity that drove her relentless work ethic, of the genuine belief that financial provision was the purest expression of parental love. "We thought we were giving you what we never had," she explained. Security. Options. Freedom from the kind of stress that comes with financial uncertainty. "But I had other needs that went unmet," I said gently. "Yes." She wiped at her tears. By the time we realized our mistake, the pattern was set. And then we doubled down, telling ourselves that if we just worked harder, built more, secured your future more thoroughly, it would make up for our absence. Later that day, my father joined the conversation. Unlike my mother, he struggled to articulate his emotions, but his regret was evident in every hesitant word, every averted glance. "We can't change the past," he said, his voice gruff with suppressed emotion. "I wish to God we could. But we're trying to change the future. This trip, it's been about learning to live differently, to value different things. I'm not sure I can forgive everything," I told them honestly. "But I'm willing to try to build something new. Something healthier. That's all we can ask for," my mother said softly. That evening, over dinner at a local restaurant, Ryan shared stories about his parents' transformation after his sister's death. How they had consciously changed their priorities, rebuilt their family culture, learned to express love differently. "It took them losing a child to figure it out," he explained. "But they did figure it out. People can change when they truly want to." My parents exchanged glances. "We want to," my father said simply. It wasn't an instant healing. There were tense moments, old patterns that emerged, hurt feelings that flared unexpectedly. But there was also laughter. More than I could remember sharing with my parents in years. There were questions about my life that went beyond academic and career achievements. There was, most surprisingly, genuine interest in getting to know Ryan as a person rather than just my husband. On our last night in Hawaii, my parents made an announcement. "We've sold our house in Seattle," my mother told us over dinner. "We're moving to a smaller place in Madison Park." "But that's just 15 minutes from us," I said, surprised. My father nodded. "That's the point. We want to be nearby. Available. Present." He cleared his throat. "If you'll have us." The old me would have been skeptical, would have predicted they'd soon fall back into workaholic patterns. But watching them over the past few days, seeing how they'd changed during their 6-month journey, how they interacted with each other and with us, I allowed myself to believe that perhaps this time would be different. "I'd like that," I said cautiously. "But I need you to understand that I have boundaries now. And expectations." "That's fair," my mother agreed. "We have a lot to prove." As Ryan and I packed for our return flight the next morning, he wrapped his arms around me from behind. "Proud of you," he murmured against my hair. "For what?" "For being brave enough to try again with them. For finding a middle path between cutting them off completely and pretending nothing happened." I turned in his embrace. "I had a good example in you. Your parents rebuilt after tragedy. Maybe mine can rebuild after failure. Family is complicated," he said with a slight smile, "but worth fighting for." I thought about the Malibu house waiting for us, a complicated gift that represented both absence and love. Perhaps it was time to reclaim it, to fill it with new memories, to transform it from a symbol of what I'd missed to a foundation for what might still be possible. "I think I'm ready to go back to Malibu," I told Ryan. "Maybe invite your parents." "Mine too, when they get back to the States. Start fresh." His smile widened. "Building something new on the foundation they provided." "Exactly." I rested my head against his chest, listening to his steady heartbeat. Not forgetting the past, but not imprisoned by it either. The journey to understanding my parents, their limitations, their intentions, their flawed expressions of love, was far from complete. But for the first time, it felt possible. Not because they had bought me a beach house or paid off my mortgage, but because they were finally willing to meet me where I needed them most, in the present moment, with open hearts and honest words. Sometimes the most valuable gifts aren't things at all. The California sun painted golden streaks across the Pacific as I stood on the deck of the Malibu house, our house, watching the horizon. 6 months had passed since our trip to Hawaii, a period of cautious rebuilding and recalibration of expectations. My parents had returned to Seattle as promised, settling into their new Madison Park home just 15 minutes from us. The change in their lifestyle was dramatic and, to my continuing surprise, seemingly sustainable. My father had fully retired, channeling his energy into volunteering with a youth entrepreneurship program. My mother consulted part-time, strictly limiting her hours and turning off her phone during family time, a concept that would have been unthinkable a year ago. The Malibu property had become our gathering place. Ryan and I visited monthly, sometimes alone for romantic weekends, sometimes with friends. Today was special, though, the first time both sets of parents would be together here. "Penny for your thoughts," Ryan said, joining me at the railing, 2 glasses of wine in hand. "Just thinking about how much has changed in a year." I accepted the glass, leaning into his solid warmth. Last May I was furious at my parents for missing our wedding. Now I'm hosting them for a long weekend at the beach house they bought us. Ryan chuckled. Life takes some unexpected turns. That it does. I sipped my wine, savoring the crisp taste. Your parents' flight land on time? Yep. They should be here within the hour. Mom's already texted twice about how excited she is to see the house. Martha and Gerald Matthews had embraced their role as in-laws with characteristic warmth, regularly inviting my parents to family gatherings. The relationship between the two couples had been awkward at first, but had evolved into a genuine friendship that still occasionally surprised me. My mom called earlier, I told Ryan. She wanted to know if she should bring the photo albums she found in storage. Apparently, there are baby pictures I've never seen. That sounds nice, Ryan said carefully, knowing how complex my feelings remained. It does, actually. I turned to face him. A year ago, looking at those albums would have been painful evidence of what they missed. Now it feels like, I don't know, reclaiming pieces of my history. Building a more complete picture. The therapy sessions with Dr. Bennett had continued, sometimes including my parents, sometimes just me. The work was ongoing, but the progress was undeniable. We were learning to communicate in new ways, to express needs directly, to acknowledge hurts without weaponizing them. They're really trying, Mac, Ryan observed. Your mom texted me yesterday asking what your favorite breakfast is now. She wanted to make sure they brought the right groceries. I smiled at the small but significant detail. Blueberry pancakes. Same as it's been since I was 8. That's what I told her. But the fact that she asked shows she's not assuming she knows me anymore. She's making an effort to learn. I nodded. I know. It's these little things that matter more than the grand gestures. The sound of a car on the gravel driveway announced the arrival of my parents. We watched as they emerged from their rental, looking relaxed in casual clothes that still seemed slightly strange on them after decades of business attire. Welcome to Malibu, I called, descending the stairs to greet them. My mother embraced me warmly. This view is even more spectacular than the photos. Wait until you see the sunset, Ryan told them, helping my father with the luggage. We brought groceries, my mother announced, holding up several bags. Including blueberries for pancakes tomorrow. The simple acknowledgement of my preference, something so basic yet so meaningful, brought unexpected tears to my eyes. Thanks, Mom. That's perfect. Inside, my parents explored the house with new eyes, not as providers examining their investment, but as visitors appreciating the space. My mother lingered in the office with its wall of photographs. I'm sorry we missed so many of these moments, she said quietly when I joined her. I know. I stood beside her, studying the visual timeline of my life. But you're here now. Better late than never. Her voice held a question. Something like that, I agreed. Though earlier would have been nice too. She nodded, accepting the gentle rebuke without defensiveness, another change from the mother I'd known before. The arrival of Ryan's parents completed our gathering. Martha Matthews swept in with her characteristic energy, embracing everyone including my parents, while Gerald followed with their luggage and a case of wine. This place is absolute heaven, Martha declared, taking in the view. No wonder you kids come here every chance you get. Dinner that evening was a revelation, 6 adults sharing a meal, conversations flowing naturally, laughter erupting frequently. My father and Gerald discovered a shared interest in classic cars. My mother and Martha exchanged gardening tips. Ryan and I exchanged glances across the table, both slightly amazed at the scene unfolding before us. Later, as everyone settled in the living room with coffee and dessert, my mother cleared her throat. We have something for you both, she said, retrieving a package from her bag. A belated wedding gift of sorts. Inside the carefully wrapped box was a handcrafted photo album, its cover embossed with our names and wedding date. We hired a photographer for your wedding day, my father explained, his voice rough with emotion. We asked him to capture everything we were missing. I opened the album with trembling hands to find professional photographs documenting every moment of our wedding day, getting ready with my bridesmaids, Ryan waiting at the altar, the ceremony, the reception. Moments I knew my parents hadn't witnessed in person. We thought you might want a complete record, my mother added softly. Even if we weren't physically there. The familiar mix of hurt and appreciation washed over me, the recognition of effort paired with the reminder of absence. But this time, the appreciation won out. Thank you, I said sincerely. It's beautiful. Ryan squeezed my hand, understanding the complexity of my reaction. The weekend unfolded in a peaceful rhythm. Morning walks on the beach, lazy afternoons by the pool, evenings of board games and conversations that sometimes ventured into deeper territory. During one such evening, Gerald shared stories about how his relationship with Ryan had transformed after Emily's death. Losing her taught me that time is the only resource that matters in the end, he told my parents. You can always make more money, but you can't make more time. My mother nodded, tears in her eyes. We learned that lesson far too late. But we're grateful for the chance to do better now. On our final morning together, over the promised blueberry pancakes, I made an announcement that had been waiting for the right moment. Ryan and I have some news, I began, my hand finding his under the table. We're going to need one of those college funds sooner than expected. I placed my other hand on my still flat stomach. We're having a baby. The reaction was immediate and joyous. Martha clapping her hands in delight, Gerald beaming proudly, my father looking stunned but happy. My mother burst into tears. February, Ryan added, grinning. Just after our first anniversary. You're going to be grandparents, I told both sets of parents. All 4 of you. Later, as my mother helped me clean up the kitchen, she broached a subject that clearly had been on her mind. I want you to know, she said carefully, that we won't repeat our mistakes with your child. We understand now what we didn't before. I believe you, I replied, surprised to realize I meant it. But I'll hold you to that. Please do. She wiped her hands on a dish towel. We've already blocked off the entire month of February in our calendars. No work, no travel, nothing that would keep us from being there when the baby arrives. The simple statement, the prioritization I'd craved my entire childhood, meant more than any beach house ever could. A month after our Malibu gathering, my parents arrived unannounced at our Seattle home on a Saturday morning, carrying coffee and pastries. We thought we'd help set up the nursery, my father explained somewhat sheepishly. If that's okay. Ryan and I exchanged surprised glances. We haven't even cleared out the guest room yet, I told them. Then we'll help with that too, my mother said, already rolling up her sleeves. And they did. For the entire weekend, my parents who had never so much as assembled an IKEA bookshelf in my presence, painted walls, built furniture, and organized baby supplies. Not as a grand gesture or financial contribution, but with their time, their presence, their actual labor. Watching my father meticulously assemble a crib, his forehead furrowed in concentration, I felt something shift inside me, the final piece of a complicated puzzle falling into place. This was what I had needed all along. Not their money or their connections or their perfectly curated gifts, but simply their presence. Their willingness to show up, to engage, to be physically and emotionally available. "You okay?" Ryan asked, finding me teary-eyed in the hallway. "Better than okay," I assured him. "Just processing how much has changed." As my pregnancy progressed, both sets of parents remained consistently present. Martha shared wisdom from her own pregnancies. Gerald installed safety features throughout our house. My father researched baby equipment with the same thoroughness he'd once applied to business deals. My mother attended every doctor's appointment I allowed her to join, asking thoughtful questions and taking detailed notes. When Charlotte Emily Matthews arrived 2 weeks early on a stormy January night, all 4 grandparents were at the hospital within hours, despite the midnight timing. My mother brought a hand-knitted blanket she'd been working on for months. My father appeared with coffee for Ryan and tears in his eyes when he held his granddaughter. "She's perfect," he whispered, gazing down at Charlotte's tiny face. Absolutely perfect. In the quiet moments of those early days of parenthood, exhausted but exhilarated, I found myself reflecting on the journey that had brought us here. The wedding day disappointment that had spiraled into a deeper understanding of my family history. The painful confrontations that had ultimately led to healing. The gift that had initially seemed like a poor substitute for presence, but had become a gathering place for our expanding family. 6 months after Charlotte's birth, we celebrated our second wedding anniversary at the Malibu house, this time with our daughter, both sets of grandparents, and Allison and her new fiancé. Watching my mother gently rock Charlotte on the deck at sunset, singing the same lullaby she had apparently sung to me, I felt a sense of completion, not because all wounds were healed or all hurts forgotten, but because we had found a way forward that honored both the pain of the past and the possibility of the future. "Pretty amazing, isn't it?" Ryan said, joining me on the beach after putting Charlotte down for the night. "A year ago, would you have imagined this?" "Never." I leaned against his shoulder, watching the waves. When they missed our wedding, I thought that was the final break. I never imagined it would actually be the beginning of something better. Life's funny that way. Sometimes the worst moments lead to the best changes. I thought about the young girl I'd been, waiting by the phone for parents who were always too busy, and wished I could tell her that someday they would learn to show up. That the lesson would come painfully late, but it would come. That love, even imperfectly expressed, could find new ways to manifest. I never thought I'd say this, I admitted, but I'm actually grateful for that wedding day disappointment. And for the Malibu house. Not because material things make up for emotional absence, but because it forced us to have the conversations we'd been avoiding for decades. Ryan nodded. Sometimes you need a breaking point before you can rebuild. Inside the house, I could see both sets of parents through the windows, laughing together over a board game. The sight filled me with a quiet joy, not the perfect family I dreamed of as a child, but a real one, with real flaws and real growth and real love. "We should head in," Ryan suggested. "It's getting chilly." "In a minute." I wanted to savor this moment a little longer, this peaceful culmination of a turbulent journey. The gift my parents had left behind on my wedding day had indeed changed everything, not because of its monetary value, but because it had opened the door to understanding, forgiveness, and a new beginning. The true gift hadn't been the house at all, but the opportunity to break destructive patterns and build healthier ones. As I look back on this journey, I wonder if any of you have experienced similar transformations in your family relationships. Have you found ways to forgive without forgetting, to establish boundaries while allowing growth? Share your stories in the comments below. I'd love to hear how you've navigated complex family dynamics. And if you're in the middle of your own family struggle right now, remember that healing is rarely linear, rarely simple, but always possible. Sometimes the deepest wounds lead to the most profound healing, and sometimes the most painful disappointments open doors to unexpected joy. Thank you for joining me on this journey. If you found meaning in my story, please like this video and subscribe to my channel for more reflections on family, forgiveness, and finding your way forward. Until next time, remember that it's never too late to write a new chapter in your family story.